Welcome
Hey,
to the
everybody.
Five Stack, everybody.
You're
Rock your
singing for us?
body.
What?
Yeah. No, it's been if you hate Donald Trump, it has been a very, very, very good 72 hours. Like an incredible 72 hours. Sure, the world's in turmoil. Sure, the United States is in chaos. Sure, we had a massive movement in the United States, made it tough for people to move around, but democracy was on the menu, my friends, this weekend in that beautiful country to the south of us that Canadians know and love is our greatest neighbor and best friends. We watched you all come out in droves. So we're going to talk about the No Kings protest numbers. We're going to talk about Donald Trump's absolutely nuclear bullshit terrible weekend, which most people wouldn't survive, but somehow he did. We'll also talk about his parade. We'll add that to his shit hot weekend, and then we'll add his mental and physical decline, which is on display today in California, or sorry, in Canada, as Donald Trump and the Trump regime showed up. It looked like a bunch of students, gave this crazy rant to start the G7, and I wonder who he's sitting next to. But welcome to the Five Stack. We've got lots to get to, maybe a Bitcoin story in there. Weekend was good, Sev. Did you
Weekend was really
enjoy the
good.
No Kings stuff?
I thought No
Did you
Kings was
watch a lot of it?
fantastic. I ended up doing a live broadcast for an hour, and it was just, I always had consumed a lot of the visuals early in the day, but we're just watching it live and seeing how, that first time we saw the masses in LA, hundreds of thousands, maybe 100,000 people showing up there in LA. There's the images out of Philadelphia. These, those are the kind of images you want to see. And then to see the contrast between that and nobody showing up for the military parade and this pathetic parade with
Like
soldiers.
nobody.
Yeah, soldiers can march
Nope.
or can march, but don't want to march. You know, it was beautiful in many ways, and it was raining on the No Kings thing. So we'll get to that later on, but that's definitely coming up. How was your weekend?
Yeah, weekend was good. Excuse me. I was glued to every single Trump failure this weekend. Like I said, I didn't want to watch the military parade. Cleared the deck at 6:30 and watched a disaster unfold in front of my eyes, and just literally was glued to Twitter. And I try to like take the weekends off. I think if anybody follows me
Yeah,
on
me
Substack,
too.
and God bless you, really really grateful for so many people that have jumped on, tens of thousands of subscribers, people who have chosen to spend some time and donate their trust to the information that we give out. So I try to give everybody a break from me because it's pretty high test. It's 5, 6 stories. A lot of it's breaking news. Some of
Right.
it's intense. And so I didn't tweet this weekend. I just took it all in. And if you love Schadenfreude, Donald Trump had the worst weekend visually, perceptually, realistically that I can remember in a very long time. The visuals from his parade of the poor sucker with the drone in the air, and then people abandoning him, and literally him falling asleep in the middle of it because it was such a terrible parade. The silent protest of the soldiers at the parade, who did not march in unison. They were sauntering down the street like, I can't fucking believe we have to be here. This is bullshit. And you compare that with the anti-Trump movement. Between 10 to 13 million Americans came out to tell him to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
For a guy whose ego exists when it just comes to the perception of the visual he wants people to have of him, which he's been able to manage, cat's out of the bag. Like, the entire country hates that man's guts, as do the people that he made parade around and devalue the men and women in uniform on the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. And coming up here today, he just got embarrassed yet again this morning. We'll get to that. But Jesus Christ, what an awesome weekend if you can't stand Donald Trump. Just an
Absolutely.
awesome
And,
weekend.
we might as well make this a number 5 story, even though it wasn't our original number 5 story. Let's get to it because it's all
You
about
can be
No
flexible,
Kings.
right?
Yeah, we're very flexible here.
Yeah.
This is the Trump's parade flopping and 12 millions march against him. I just can't believe that they spent so much money in order to make him look like a great authoritarian leader, projecting strength across the world. And that money, $90 million or whatever it was, landed up producing that event. That just tells you everything you need to know about where the military is in terms of their support of Donald Trump. If he thinks, or if anyone thinks, that he has the military behind him, that is not the case. I mean, these guys were not just not marching effectively. They were not marching effectively because they were doing it in protest. I mean, this was a protest march. They can march. They all go to boot camp. They all learn how to march very effectively when they go to boot camp. But they deliberately did not do the proper marching in front of him because they were protesting against him. They were protesting against being there, supporting a dictator. They're supporting against going to wars on behalf of the dictator. This is a very significant move to see that very visually, clearly, that the soldiers are not behind him. If they were behind him, if they supported him, we would have seen a very different spectacle. We would have seen a very well choreographed, very strident march down there. That was, some people are saying that these guys don't all have day jobs and desk jobs, so they don't practice marching. But I don't believe that's the case. Soldiers know how to march, and certainly
Yes.
American soldiers know how to march. So really what it was a protest against Donald Trump, and it was a beautiful thing to behold amongst the empty stadium seating and these some tanks running around. The drone show didn't work. I mean, it was just, it was just failure upon failure upon failure. And this is a guy who's from show business. He loves things to go according to plan.
Yeah.
His face looked so pained. Melania's face looked amazing. And she was laughing at him. And
dude, she was turning at him like, this is it? This is what we got? 90 million? This is your fucking birthday party? This is the lamest shit I've ever seen. Russia mocked him. China mocked him. North Korea, as a matter of fact, mocked him. Like, hey, that's a parade. No, this is a military parade. They know how to do fucking military parades, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about two things, right? The cost involved in what he put on and what he got, the return on investment Donald Trump had for the American taxpayer dollar, that cost you $95 million. Okay. Aside from the fact it was the ethics behind it are just egregiously, ridiculously awful. Aside from the fact that in no way does America do those things as a matter of policy. Aside from the fact that he was throwing himself $100 million birthday party, no one knows where the money went. Because it was also sponsored by Coinbase. This military parade brought to you by Coinbase. This military parade brought to you by Meta. So they made money there. And Palantir, which is building that surveillance software, to your point. But they can't, this regime and this man and the people he surrounded himself with are such fucking lightweights and abject failures and so not serious about anything that they do that is exactly the parade that you get when Donald Trump taps anybody to do anything for him because he surrounds himself with idiots. Not that the parade should have gone off and been gangbusters, but it was an abysmal failure that cost you hundreds of millions of dollars that he also took in advertising money for partnerships with different companies like Coinbase and Meta. Coca-Cola was also involved in that, which I can't fucking believe it. But then he also sold tickets to it. Now, let me just give you a couple of numbers, right? Let's talk about No Kings. Between early estimates 10 to 13 million, other estimates up to 15 million, as low as 8 million. Okay, around the city, like 1/8 of the country was mobilized this weekend to go and fucking do something. Okay, maybe a tenth. And so, whether it was protesting or whether it was making signs, whether it was donating, an eighth of the United States of America was active in protesting against Donald Trump in some way, shape, or form. 20,000 people showed up to Donald Trump's piss-poor military dictator parade. 20,000 people. Of those 20,000, something in the neighborhood of 8,500 bought tickets. The remainder were the men and women in uniform and their families who had been brought in, as well as apparently some paid actors, because you know how Donald Trump likes to do that. So of the 20,000 people that came to a parade that was supposed to include 250,000 screaming attendance, which is why Fox News had to pipe in the screaming fan noise behind Trump before he gave a speech.
Did they really?
But yeah, they dubbed it in.
Oh my god!
Absolutely dubbed it in. I've got a video. I'll put it out later on my Substack. It's awesome, but because there's the before and after. There's the PBS version and the Fox version. The PBS version is like the MSNBC version, like the CNN version, but the Fox version's got rabid.
It's your leader, yay! It's your leader. How great leader!
But it was it was an abject failure that made him look as exactly small as you would think that that man would look, and he looked disheveled and unwell and sickly, which carried on to today. He arrived in Canada looking like ass, looking like he had just been defeated by the world, and he is being defeated by the United States of America. And I could not be more proud of everybody in that country this weekend.
You raised an interesting point there about the money, $95 million, and it wasn't on the screen. That was not visible to anybody. You didn't see a $95 million spectacle, which raises the question, where does all this money go and how much
Yeah.
is landing up in his pocket? How much is lining other people's pockets? It doesn't seem to me like that was on display in any way whatsoever.
No.
So, it's a good question about that. As to the No Kings Day, it was so emboldening for everybody, and I know we'll get to hear from a lot of our followers throughout the next week as we recap some of the stuff. But it was amazing to see so many people show up, and I am curious what the next step is going to be. Do you have a sense of what the next big day is, or what the next the next stage in this growing resistance? 12 million people showed up in this one. It's growing.
Yeah, it is in a big way. I think No Kings has turned into a bit of a brand. Hopefully, it remains an altruistic brand and not a profiteering brand, because you know how that goes. We can talk about Black Lives Matter and other movements that where profiteering became more important than the actual movement itself. But I'm hearing that there is another No Kings Day rally scheduled for a month from yesterday. So they're going to do these on a monthly basis. They may ramp up. They're going to start doing pop-up No Kings protests. Apparently at senators' homes in certain states. They're going to start going to lawmakers' houses, which is an interesting proposition because of what happened in Minnesota, which we'll get to a little later on in the program. But I could not believe how peaceful it was. I could not believe the very few reports of vandalism. Sure, people got picked up. Yes, of course, you're going to have, the odd arrest here or there, maybe 100 to 200 arrests that I am aware of. And when you consider that, between 10 and 13 million Americans took to the streets, that is incredible. Some of the arrests were agitators. Some were just pissed drunk losers who decided to go and wreck shit. We get that all the time. Doesn't matter what the protest is. You've got professional protest circuit people out there. But organizers are just amazed. Gavin Newsom put out a really cool mashup with all the different cities where, you had 400,000 people in Boston, 500,000 people in New York, 300,000 people, like hundreds of thousands of people gridlocking the biggest cities in America, saying no to fascism, saying no to a dictator, saying no to Donald Trump's authoritarianism, saying no to the Trump regime. And then you saw the visual of this little tiny tank rolling by Donald Trump, who's saluting, and like Bernie Sanders in the lawn chair with his mittens on and a tumbleweed going down the street.
There's one
Some
shot
really
where he's
great
actually just
memes.
saluting and there's nothing in front of him, which is even the best. There's no
Yeah.
there's no soldiers, no
There's
tanks,
nobody in the stands.
just an empty street. Hey, his approval rating's around 36% now. That's the lowest in a first quarter for a long time. I mean, he really is doing badly, and this is great news. It's great news that the message is getting through that Americans are not supporting Donald Trump in any way, and it certainly looks like it's a declining support that he has there already.
He's a declining asset. Listen, one of the things that a conversation I had with somebody this morning is the veil's been pierced. Like for the longest time, you used to be able to look at guys like Donald Trump and go, "Wow, maybe he's not that bad. Maybe he is a little more popular than I thought he is." He's not. He is that bad. He is not popular. America fucking hates his guts. The entire free world can't stand the man. America is rising up. He is losing 7 ways to Sunday. We talked about it in the podcast and last week.
Mm.
The losses that this man is accruing are piling up at an alarming rate. And this weekend, he lost the most that I've ever seen him lose. And he lost in an arena where that's the only thing that matters to him, which is public perception of his power, his influence, his ego, his popularity. And the American people did that. The American people did that on a day where he threw himself a parade, where he put himself in front of 250 years worth of military service by the U.S. Army. And the American people said, "Nah, fuck you, dude." And so did the soldiers that were marching in the parade, where they were nonchalantly with their heads down going, "Whatever, man, whatever." Anyway, good for you, America. You looked beautiful this week.
Yeah, very proud of everybody. There's one president that got a lower approval rating with him than him at this point in their presidency. That is Richard Nixon.
Mm.
got lower. So, he's better than Richard Nixon. So that's not too bad, Donald. Don't be too upset about it. You're not stone last. Let's get to number 5. Oh, sorry, number 4 in the story, which is is on the countdown today, which is the story out of Alberta, Canada, where it's really Trump versus the G6 is what they should be calling the G7 summit. Donald Trump refusing to sign the G7 joint statement calling for de-escalation in the Israel-Iran conflict, creating a dramatic rift with the other 6 world leaders. It's unusual for the United States to not want to put their name to a de-escalation statement. So far, there are 224 Iranians, 24 Israelis that are dead after 4 days of escalating strikes. Trump stands alone against his allies in a world that wants this conflict to be tampered down. He doesn't seem to be in support of that. It's just one of the incredible things that has happened in the G7, which has just started officially today. And boy, there's a lot of noise around what Donald Trump has already been saying, and Carney's reaction to that.
Yeah. If you didn't see Donald Trump start, we'll get to the de-escalation communique in just a second, but if you didn't see Donald Trump's press conference to start the G7, you missed a beauty. Go to deanblondell.substack.com. I've got 5 different videos there you can truly enjoy in like a 5-minute period. He rambled incoherently, felt like he delivered a message on behalf of Vladimir Putin to let him back into the G7, so he was stumping for Putin in Russia when he got there. I'd be pissed too if Trudeau kicked me out. Lied about who kicked Russia out of the G7.
Why they were kicked out? I mean, they were kicked out because of the war.
They attacked Crimea.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
they were kicked out because 9 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's saying that the war would never have happened if he was still in the thing. But so it's the other way around, Donald.
It's just continued to happen. Yeah. Yeah, he's a fucking idiot. And then he's like, some guy named Obama and some guy named Trudeau kicked Russia out. And I'm like, actually, it was 2014. It was some guy named Stephen Harper, who you know quite well, and you got that wrong, you fucking idiot. And it was a guy named Obama. You got that right. I'm surprised he didn't say Hussein. But then he rambled about L.A., and then he went on about, and the funniest part is there's this moment where Mark Carney's just sitting there, just handing him rope with a smile on his face, like this is going to be my strategy for the next 3.5 years. I'm just going to let this fucking moron talk. So finally, he's like, well, yeah, we might settle some tariffs, but I don't know if you guys know this. And keep in mind, he's standing next to a master economist, former governor of 2 banks, one of England, one of Canada, who's got his PhD and his doctorate in economics from Harvard and Oxford. And he's standing there. And this is Donald Trump. It's like a career con man, rapist, criminal, moron, no higher education, can barely fucking read. He, in front of the world, goes, well, I'm a tariff guy. And he's like, they're precise and I like them, but Mark's got other ideas, and so we'll talk about those ideas. And I started fucking I was laughing out loud eating cereal this morning. I had a bite of granola while I was watching this, and I'm like laughing like fucking Adam Sandler in Mr. Deeds. Like I couldn't stop laughing because he's standing next to a fucking economic genius, and he's like, I'm a tariff guy, but he's got other.
Yeah, he did say he had other good ideas. He credited there was some good ideas that Carney had, but he
doesn't even know what they are, Zev. He's so fucking cooked, and he looked, by the way, so unwell.
He doesn't look good at all in every single
sick.
image of the last few days. He looks painfully sick. Like he looks gaunt, and I don't know if he's just having a rough few days. He clearly is. But there's also just that, he just physically looks like sunken and not healthy. His skin looks bad. The whole thing just looks.
Well, he's jaundiced too, right? I don't even notice. Like I know he's got the bronzer on, but he's got some waste management problems. The catheter is a problem for him right now.
That last week,
he's got some waning health issues. He's got these crazy jaundice bruises all over his hands. He looks absolutely just awful, low energy, low mood. And to your point,
his speech was so awful, just droning on, just like it was
made
hard
no
to
sense.
Understand. It was just like
super incoherent.
Really terrible.
Got no facts right.
Yeah.
Like he was just it was a fucking mess. But listen, this is the other part that I want to bring up. Mark Carney's face, and he's got this like face. He did it in the Oval Office. This one.
Oh, that face.
The squint and the like pursed lips, and then he kind of turns and looks. I call it the okay taco face. His okay taco face when Donald Trump says something stupid, which is like, on a second like interval, is like this. Well, that'll be interesting.
I mean, this
his okay
deal.
taco face, you got to go check it out.
I
It is
thought
truly
it's really great.
fantastic. Yeah.
The thing
Mm.
is, this is a big deal for Carney. He's hosting the world leaders there. He's got um, the entire world is looking at him and seeing how he's handling Trump, and he is schooling Trump. I mean, that at least in that initial press conference,
Yeah.
Trump lost that, and Carney looks fantastic. Carney is almost like watching an accident in slow motion. You know, it was really one of these like really difficult things to watch over the long period. So tell people about Carney and about his strategy over the next few days, about what he plans to achieve from Donald Trump. You know, last time Donald Trump left early when he was at the G7. What's Carney attempting to do here?
You know, it's interesting, but he's going to give him a ton of rope and put him in a box, right? I think the one strategy that Mark Carney has effectively employed, and people in his orbit have encouraged this, and he's a really smart guy. He's real direct, but he's a bit of a psyops guy, right? Where he'll just let you do the talking, and then he'll surgically take you apart. And there was a moment after Donald Trump was ranting where Mark Carney was like, "Listen, I got to step in here." And he goes, if you don't mind, as the president of the G7 group of nations, it's kind of my job to make sure that we get in and start talking about these things with the president and his team. Only have a limited amount of time, so we're going to go do that. Thank you very much. So he literally let Donald Trump lie his face off, incoherently ramble for a solid 6 to 8 minutes. And then when he was done, when he not like, I mean, he could have gone on, he could have let it happen. When he was done and he saw Trump was in serious cognitive trouble towards the end of his rant, because he stepped in like a Canadian gentleman with authority and a smile on his face. This is right after two or three okay taco faces he did. He's like, wow, okay. And he's like, okay, guys, I'm the president of the G7. Canada is going to move this thing into the other room. We're going to have a meeting. Thanks very much. Have a nice day. That is the template for what you're going to see from Mark Carney. It's going to be surgical comments. He's going to when someone asks Trump a question, he's not going to interrupt him. He's going to give him all the rope that he needs, and that rope he's going to use to make sure that he ties him up and puts him in a box, specifically with this communique when it comes to condemning and asking for a de-escalation between Israel and Iran. The free world wants that. You know, the people of Israel want that. Fuck, the people of Iran, not
Absolutely.
kettled by the Islamic regime, want a
Yeah.
de-escalation of violence. And for Trump not to sign that, that isn't just Trump abstaining on behalf of Netanyahu. They knew he wouldn't.
Yeah, they did.
They knew that he wasn't going to sign it. And so they turned that into a little bit of news that you need to know is that Donald Trump's a bit of a warmonger. And I don't know if we can have members of the G7 be warmongering nations siding with Putin. And they're also going to condemn what he said about allowing Vladimir Putin into the G7 as well. Zelensky hasn't made his
Mhm.
appearance yet. And for Donald Trump to start that way, I mean, that was a precursor. I don't know who asked the question, but you're going to see questions being asked of Donald Trump where Mark Carney can sit back, watch him with this rope, hang himself, and then turn around and turn it into PR magic for the G7 group of democratic nations. And there was a point today where Donald Trump and Team USA, the Trump regime, decided that they were not going to sign on to a communique asking for a de-escalation in the war between Israel and Iran, where Giorgia Meloni, who's a right-leaning leader from Italy, she's the president of Italy, leans in and hears something from Emmanuel Macron, who's the president of France, and she disgustingly rolls her eyes and goes, "You've got to be fucking kidding
Yeah.
me."
Yeah,
Right?
those two moments are so important. The fact that he's supporting Russia so openly, the fact that he's supporting Bibi's, continued efforts in Iran, and the fact that he's not supporting a de-escalation, it's clear that the mask is off. He is part of this authoritarian club. He is
Mhm.
part of the Putin, Bibi, Erdogan, you name it, club, and he is performing on their behalf, pushing their policies. Now, as you point out, that's not the G7. The G7 is about liberal democracies. It's not about even size or anything like that. It's about values. And he is at odds with all the values that the G7 countries
Yeah, well
hold.
said. Yeah.
And that is a significant issue. You know, at the end of the day, he's not really a natural member anymore of that alliance, even though the United States might want to make itself appear like they're part of that alliance. He is not part of that alliance. And I think what Carney's doing so impressively is showing the world that he's taking the mask off and he's saying, this guy doesn't really fit in. And it's in these really smart communiques about, about de-escalation, that he's been able to show that, letting him speak so openly about Russia this morning in the way that he did, unbelievable that he would walk into that meeting and the first thing he says is that Russia should be a member here. That is just what you want. If you're Mark Carney, that is the exact image you want portrayed around the world. So it's a definite win for Carney today, and definite another loser day for Donald Trump.
It's been a good one, hasn't it? Yeah, I like it.
What's happening? So what's happening next? By the way, you got a good handle on the G7. What's next in the things to look for?
We're going to see a bunch of communiques come out, and those communiques that you're going to see are going to have everybody signed on to them, with the exception of the United States of America, when it comes to AI, when it comes to foreign policy, security. So this is the playbook. That's what you've seen. They've got. We went over the agenda. By the way, you can go and check out the agenda on my Substack, deanblundell.substack.com. There's a couple pieces up there where you can have a look at what they're going to be talking about, which is progressive values, democratic values, de-escalation, security, and alliances, trade and economic barriers that are coming up between. So you're going to literally see G6 countries, right? Not the United States, abstain from a bunch of these things, which is further going to continue to isolate America. And then what you're going to see is a real movement at the end of the G7, which is a very short period of time. And conversations start to ramp up about, as you point out, whether or not United States is really an ally you can trust, and should they right now be in the G7 group of countries with Donald Trump at the helm. And it was funny because at the start of the thing today, Mark Carney was like, the G7's nothing really without the United States. And he really put Donald Trump on his back foot today. So it's going to be interesting. The boxing out of President Donald Trump is front and center at the G7, but it's not in the way you think it is. It's going to be in little death by 1,000 cuts when it comes to having the United States destroy their own reputation and let Donald Trump do it himself for the next course of the next 24 hours.
That's great analysis. Let's move on to story number 3, where we've got the Department of Veterans Affairs has quietly changed hospital bylaws, allowing doctors to refuse treatment to unmarried veterans and Democrats. Yep. Unmarried veterans and Democrats can now get refused treatment at VA hospitals under new guidelines following Trump's executive orders. Medical staff can now decline care based on patients' political and marital status and can be fired for the same reasons. This is kind of unbelievable. You've got 9 million veteran patients that are part of the VA world and who rely on the VA to provide them service. But now if you're a Democrat, or you appear to be a Democrat, I don't even know how they know you're a Democrat. What, do you look like a Democrat? You could refuse service. And this, of course, also impacts LGBTQ patients who might be showing up there, the particular stance against trans in the military. This is a very, very difficult to understand policy, but it's about as Third Reich-ish as you can be.
Yeah. I didn't even know if this was a real story. And then I went to the Vote for Vets website, which we had Janessa Goldbeck, who is a senior advisor at Vote for Vets, on the show the other day. And I wanted to send her a note and ask her if it was real. But I didn't have to, because The Guardian had it, Politico had it, a bunch of mainstream media outlets that aren't necessarily captured mainstream media outlets. And effectively, to your point, and I put a post up about it prior to actually getting up on the podcast today, because I knew we were going to talk about it, and I thought we might want to have some information for people out there to kind of follow. So if you go to deanblundell.substack.com, there's a titled post there that says, Trump just gave VA doctors permission to deny care to anti-MAGA veterans. That's fascism, period, because it's what it is. It's the refusal to give medical services to veterans who fought and paid for their benefits with their lives, with their safety, with their bodies, with their minds, based on the directive of Donald Trump that if you are not MAGA enough, if you're a Democrat, if you are unmarried, or simply if the healthcare professional at the VA decides they don't want to treat you because of your social leanings, your belief system, your ideology, or your marital status, or your skin color, because listen, they don't need a reason. That's stipulated in this, that they can refuse service to anybody for any reason whatsoever. Think about the bakery that refused to make the cake for the 2 gay dudes when they got married. Think about that. It's exactly the same, but these are life-saving medical services for injured veterans.
Yeah, it's
and how fucking archaically disgusting, discriminatory, and fascist that is. I
It
have
is.
never in my life, and I mean, we're gonna watch this big, beautiful bill possibly carve Medicaid away for
Mm,
14, 15 million people. These are veterans who went to war for fucking President Bone Spurs.
mm.
These are people who need lifelines of veterans communities, veterans affairs for medical assistance, psychological assistance, psychiatric assistance. And he's now told doctors, you don't have to actually serve Democrats. You don't have to see them. If they're unmarried, you don't like the cut of their jib, they're not MAGA enough for you, refuse them service. This is the grossest
Mm.
fascist injection from Donald Trump into America that we've seen yet, in my estimation.
Well, what they're trying to do is create this, difference between white Americans, white Christian Americans, which have got, going to have access to everything, and then everybody else. So it's not just about the VA. This is them telling America it's okay to discriminate. It's okay to discriminate against Democrats, as he's doing with some of these other moves lately. He is determined to make it to go against blue states. He's determined to go against Democrats, and in order to create this heightened, superior white nationalist Christian race that he's looking to hold up above everybody else. And that is what's really going on here. This is much more than just a change in policy or anything like that. This is allowing whites basically to discriminate against everybody else, because it's not going to be anybody else that's doing the discrimination. It's going to be the white people doing it. And we've seen it in some of the Department of Justice policies where they're looking to protect Christian nationals, Christianity rights, I guess, that we're doing it in various DOJ departments. So what we're seeing is this growth of this apartheid-like discriminatory system, which is about, identifying people on just the way they look, making assumptions about them, but then also denying them so much, denying them services, denying them access to certain places. I still, I was growing up, there were no black signs on benches. There were no, there were places that black people could not go. There were places that white people could go. There were toilets and washrooms for different races. This was very part of this sort of bizarre technocratic way of discriminating against people that was apartheid South Africa. And it feels so much the same as the stuff they're putting out now.
Oh, it is.
Who writes legislation or bylaws that are so blatantly racist and so blatantly homophobic? Their only desire is to really remove the margins or ostracize the margins in order to increase the stronghold of the base.
You know, everything, and I think it's summed up best by, we get so confused with all these emergency orders, whether they're anti-trans, they're on their anti-DEI bullshit again today, because their life is falling apart. Donald Trump's perception of who he is just destroyed, and so it's back on the anti-DEI stuff today. Anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-this, anti-that, now anti-veterans, anti-Medicaid. And all of these things, to your point, are Trojan horses. Every policy that you see, every EO that you go, well, that's mean, that's nasty. I can't believe he's doing that. That's archaic. That's genocidal. That's fascist. They're all Trojan horses for what you just laid out so eloquently, which is the desire to carve away from Trump's view and Christian America, their view of what white America should look like.
Mhm.
ICE raids, Trojan horse. Immigration bullshit, Trojan horses. Detainment camps, Trojan horses. Everything that he's doing right now is a Trojan horse to remake America into this white Christian, flower dresses, traditional wives, Handmaid's Tale, society where the dregs of society are no longer noticed, people who are marginalized are no longer catered to, and Trump can then say, "We're a Christian nation.
Yeah.
We're a nation." There's a reason why, and we said this the other day. He brought in a couple hundred Afrikaners, white Afrikaners. He's like, yeah, those are refugees. They're asylum seekers. And there's also a reason why he's looking to send 1,000 people a day who are not white, who are in that country legally, away from the United States. It's great replacement theory on fucking steroids. That's what is at stake here for the United States of America. And that is why everybody should know this by now. Everything that he does is a Trojan horse to remake the United States into a white Christian nationalist nation. I mean, we're going to get to the story of Mr. Vance Boltler.
Yeah.
Vance Boltler.
Bolter.
Vance
Yes.
Bolter. But all of these politically violent terror attacks are because people are like, yeah, we get it. We get it. We want to get rid of everybody that's making America less white. We want to get rid of everybody that's making America less God-fearing, less Christian nationalist. And how do we do it? We go after the people that enable it. And we go after the people who don't look like us. And let's remake this country because we're not going to lose our place in line. We're not being replaced. Everything that man does is geared for that one purpose and one purpose only.
And what's happening as well is the harsh reality of that policy is actually sinking in now because it doesn't work. Of course, you can't have a declining population as we're now having fewer immigrants coming into the country than leaving the country. The population is going to start declining. You can't get people to do certain jobs. Earlier on today, he reversed his policy about invading or having ICE agents show up at workplaces to remove people because they don't want the workforce to be taken away because they need people to pick the agricultural crops and they need people to package all these items that they're
work
making.
At hotels, like his hotel, his wineries. Yeah.
So, the reality of his, let's make America white and pure and Christian is that it's actually terrible economic policy. It's going to, make it impossible for America to grow its economy or to produce more goods. And you just need population growth just to keep up. With you growing all the time. You need more people all the time. So it's a very big deal that he continues to push this. And what they're doing at the VA affairs is just appalling because I don't know how he gets those people who marched, semi-marched, whatever they were, doing in front of him on the military parade on Saturday. Is this meant to inspire them to fight for him? Is this meant to inspire any more higher morale for the Trump administration? Is this meant to make them better soldiers? Or is this just meant to say, don't worry, guys, we don't expect you to win anything. Just go ahead and lose everything. Because that's the feeling you get from seeing policy like this.
Yeah, and mean, and there's a decent way to do everything. And I was shocked this last week because Joe Rogan's a Trumper, right? And I'm not a Rogan guy. I think Joe has done an incredible job carving out a niche for himself, an irresponsible niche, having said that, catering to the lowest common denominator in America. I also think he has some pretty interesting conversations. Sometimes, like I said, I don't watch, I catch clips. He went all in on Trump because of the lack of decency that he is treating Americans with, migrants who pick fruit, people who pay taxes, people in that country legally. And I think decency, that one word, I was thinking about it today because I was kind of going over a litany of really mean executive orders meant to hurt people, meant to make people fear America, fear being in America, whether it's gun legislation or immigration legislation or policies or mass deportation legislations or possibly, using the Insurrection Act, is that, cruelty is the point, but all cruelty springs from weakness. And the book is out on America's impotent president and the impotent reputation he's creating for America. Watching that impotent military parade of military impotence.
Yeah.
And Americans, if there's one thing that they love, it's the perception of strength, right? No matter what. But Americans are starting to realize, and really important Americans that are important to ongoing conversations who've been on the other side, this is not how we do this. Rand Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Johnson, whole bunch of people for MAGA are like, this is not how we do this. Joe Rogan, the MAGA cheerleader, podcast god, she's like, this is really indecent of us. We shouldn't be doing this. Like, there's got to be a better way where we don't treat the people who come to this country for a better life like absolute fucking garbage and jettison them into different countries, into concentration camps. And of course there is. Of course there is. But you're not going to see that from Donald Trump because it's way too difficult. And his mind can't wrap itself around it, and they don't give a shit. They are a blunt force instrument for fascism and evangelical nationalism in the United States of America. So, secular maggots are starting to kind of come around to the idea that maybe we shouldn't be doing this to people. And they're also coming around to the idea that maybe Donald Trump isn't fit to be the president of the United States, which, those are some pretty big, influential people that he's had in his corner that are now going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Not to mention the whole Elon Elon fight that lasted a week.
I mean, that says so much. Look, I don't think I'm questioning, and this is why I'm doing such a big investigation into those vanishing votes. I still am not convinced that they really won in 2024. I keep looking at these numbers, looking at the new evidence. I've got another piece coming out about Starlink and its capabilities around election time, and it raises some really important questions. There are maybe never had the support that gave them that election win in November. Maybe he never had it. But now it's severely declined to even, a fraction of that. It's only 36% approval rating.
Yeah. Well, he's done it to himself. Hey, that story, but by the way, you're not the only person writing it. It's starting to catch fire.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good investigation that's going on. It's still far from being completely definitive, but everyone's doing really good jobs at identifying different openings.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff you've been reading isn't accurate, so people need to fact check some of these things and to take these things a little bit at a time. There's nothing definitive yet in terms of this investigation, but there's a lot more still to come. The U.S., this is number 2, the U.S. Senate will vote Tuesday on the Genius Act. That's the first comprehensive federal framework for regulating stable coins after Democrats caved to bipartisan pressure despite knowing it benefits Trump's crypto empire. So this is the bill that allows stable coins. It's been very, very controversial. It got a 68-30 cloture vote with 18 Democrats switching sides, handing Trump a regulatory framework for his $57 million World Liberty financial venture. So let me tell you what that $57 million is about. In a separate report today, he has said that he's already earned $57 million from his crypto venture, World Liberty Financial, in a disclosure that he had to make. That's unbelievable for a president, but I also think it's far lower than it really is. He's just declaring a certain amount, which is $57 million. Unbelievable. This company did not exist at the start of his presidency, or just barely. And now he's made $57 million. At the same time, you've got the Senate and the Democrats in the Senate all supporting stablecoin. And, off we are to the races as cryptocurrency becomes more of a reality. And that's ka-ching for Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and company.
Yeah. And Justin Sun, who coincidentally is launching a stablecoin cryptocurrency called Tron today, as a matter of fact.
As an IPO, I think, isn't it?
It is an initial public offering.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Through a reverse
hundreds and
takeover.
hundreds of billions of dollars, and they've just taken the rails off of stablecoin, and the United States government is going to cash in. Not the United States government, just a few people in the United States government, because you know who's actually involved in Tron? The Trump family, World Liberty. They actually have a huge stake in Justin Sun's company. Justin Sun is supposed to be in fucking jail for embezzling billions of dollars.
Exactly.
And he got a reprieve from the Trump administration when he gave him $75 million to start the Trump coin, if you remember correctly. This is a big payday for everybody that has shoveled money into Trump's fake bullshit Trump coin, the Melania coin, Justin Sun, everybody else. And when it comes to these, and I don't understand stable coins, because listen, if they call them stable coins, guaranteed they're not stable. There's nothing in the digital currency market is stable. Just know that for a fact.
Yeah, they've collapsed too. Stable coins have collapsed. We know that.
This is what is known in the business as a rugging. And this rugging is being propped up by the idea that the United States government is okay with it. They're not. They just got bullied into saying, okay, let's take the guardrails off stablecoins too. Because the holders of stablecoin are everybody involved in the Trump regime. Thiel, Musk, Justin Sun, his kids, Eric, burn victim Trump, and cocaine Trump Jr. They all hold billions of dollars in stablecoins, which are worth nothing until someone legitimizes the coins themselves and the exchange themselves. And I want you to pay very special attention to Tron and Justin Sun over the next 48 hours. And then I want you to pay very special attention to his partners in Tron, World Liberty, which is the Trump family, a couple of Asian businessmen, and a Saudi Arabia business guy, and a guy from Qatar. They are going to make billions of dollars telling people that you got to get in now, get in on the ground floor. And then they're going to take all that money and they're going to leave you with jack shit again. And the person that is in charge of this, Justin Sun, is propping up the president of the United States and his family financially through these rugs. So that is what I think of it. It is just another scam. And do not, no matter how tempted you are, go, maybe I can make a quick 10 grand. You will not. You will lose. What is it? 1 in 25,000 people makes money in these things?
Well, it
Is that
depends on
the
the in that
actual
scenario. That's a
exchange?
ratio. That's a ratio that I figured out during the original meme coin that Trump and Melania put out. Only 1 in 25,000 made any money off that. So it's not very good odds. But the thing is about stablecoin becoming part of the regulatory framework in the United States is a step closer to Bitcoin and crypto becoming regulated. And this is exactly what everybody in the Bitcoin world, in the crypto world, wants. It's why they were probably one of the biggest factors in Trump winning in 2024 was the support of the crypto industry. That's how he was able to sort of get these disparate voters from different parts of America who weren't traditional MAGA people, but to support him. And he got funded very, very handsomely by the likes of Andreessen Horowitz and those kinds of companies who are very heavily invested in crypto because he's much more in favor of crypto than Kamala Harris was during her campaign. And this is why it's such a complicated environment. We also read today that David Plouffe has now joined Coinbase as an investor, as an advisor. It's very weird to have all these Democrats in these sort of, you know, crypto circles. These crypto circles have not been full of Democrats up until now, but here they are.
Well, dude, that's how you get buy-in. You poison the well, right? You
Yeah,
go to people that are traditionally against what you're doing and you give them a bunch of money and you say, come and lobby for us. Here's
exactly.
$1,000,000. Here's some coins. Here's a couple tokens for you and your family. Don't worry. We don't want anything. We just need you to advocate for us. And they go to work. Listen, the technology behind crypto, the technology behind the blockchain, the technology behind Bitcoin is really solid. It really, really is. But as always, anytime new technology appears, bad people find bad ways to use it to take money from good people. And that's exactly what this is. Do not get into any stable coins. Don't get into any shit coins. Don't get into anything without knowing exactly what you're doing and exactly what's going on in and around the coin and who's involved.
Unless it's a
That's all. That's
hedge.
the only advice that I have for you.
If you've got a fortune of money and you want to hedge and get some Bitcoin, yeah, go for it. But as a primary investment, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, like
Probably.
if you got a few $100s in your bank account
Yeah,
and you're looking at other people that are like, I started with
yeah,
$500. Look at me, I own a yacht.
yeah.
Those aren't real stories, but just letting you
There
know.
might have been real stories for the initial investors in Bitcoin, but that's those days are long gone.
I know.
Um, Into our final story of the day, the number one story of the day, which is really a tragedy out of what happened in Minnesota. Vance Luther Bolter is a 57-year-old Trump devotee and Christian nationalist, as we've been discussing about Christian nationalism. He was arrested after a 43-hour manhunt for executing Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. This was a political assassination with a manifesto. He had a list of, get this, between 50 and 70 Democratic officials, a hit list. This is what MAGA has inspired, is you got a bunch of people running around with hit lists for politicians and then going out and actually executing it. Bolton impersonated a police officer with fake badges and vehicles, had an AK-47 assault rifle, and a target list, as we just described. Governor Tim Walz, Representative Ilhan Omar, and Senator Tina Smith were on that list. MAGA influencers immediately launched a disinformation campaign around this, suggesting that he was a Democrat. Of course, he's not a Democrat. He clearly would be offended, according to the Dean Blundell Substack, if you called him a Democrat. Tell us what you found out.
Yeah, Vance Bolter's a piece of shit. He's a Christian nationalist. He's an extremist. He's incredibly unwell. And he murdered in cold blood a U.S. lawmaker, former Speaker of the Minnesota House. I can't remember her name again. Pardon me. Excuse me. Her name is Melissa Hortman. Also, and killed her husband. They've got two children at home, who now are parentless. Senator John Huffman and his wife are fighting for their lives, still in ICU. And he showed up with like a rubber mask and a police vehicle, looked like a police vehicle, told everybody he was a cop, and then he just proceeded to shoot people. And he had, like you said, a very extensive hit list and these little flyers that say "No Kings" because he wanted to kill people at the No Kings rallies. That's what he was on his way to do. So as soon as this happened, and I saw this with COVID all the time, and it was really disgusting. Is people would die of something, right? And maybe they had a heart attack, maybe they died at 66 in their sleep, and you would see a group of trolls and online proxies, Elon Musk, Jack Posobiec, Charlie Clark, all the same characters, Stu Peters, Cat Canada, the purveyors of pure bullshit online. Co-opt the death of that person as vaccine induced. Well, they died because they got the vaccine. How many shots did they have? Da, 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 da. Well, the disinformation machine, when it comes to discrediting somebody, is is big business. So the second that these two lawmakers were shot and this one woman passed away and her husband, Elon Musk, Posobiec, Charlie Kirk, all these guys started these narratives, all the same people. So, post millennial started these narratives that, he was a Tim Walz appointee. He was a Democrat. He was a liberal. Now liberals are going around killing people. They're killing their own people. What's next for us? Like, just the twisting of this narrative. And so when you go through and fact check who this gentleman is, I'm just reading this to you from his own bio. This is who he is. He's a registered Republican. He's a former pastor and preacher. He is an evangelical preacher. He voted for Trump multiple times. Private security contractor. He had a hit list that included Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, and abortion activists. He was actively involved in targeting abortion doctors and family planning clinics. He followed anti-LGBTQ hate groups online. He is a devout Christian nationalist. And if you go to my Substack, you can literally watch him deliver a sermon about Jesus and how Jesus makes him want to dance and how much Jesus told him to hate gay people. And God appeared to me at 17, says he met Jesus. Like, literally, he's insane. He's one
Yeah.
of those insane Christian nationalists who thinks it's his job to murder people because those people are an affront to his Christ, to his Lord, to his cult, which is in this case MAGA. There is no gray area here. He is not a Democrat.
No,
He's
he's not a Democrat.
never been a liberal. His roommate, by the way, his roommate's the best. He was like, yeah, he's kind of fucking crazy. But his roommate's like, oh, he'd be offended if you called him a Democrat. He hated Nancy Pelosi. This is just another example of political violence that was stoked, stochastic terrorism by Donald Trump and MAGA. Whether it's Paul Pelosi with a hammer, whether it's that lunatic that shot up the FBI building a few years ago, if you remember correctly, whether it's this gentleman, Vance Bolter, whether it's 1,500 people at the January 6th insurrection. We live in a time where power grids, power stations being targeted by right-wing militia members. Gretchen Whitmer, who was almost kidnapped by a bunch of Trump militia fucking weirdos, and Trump just passes it off like, oh, they were just drinking, they're just having a good time, they're not really militia guys. January 6th people, oh, they're just there for a fucking tour, don't worry about it. The hyper normalization of political violence in a MAGA run United States of America is breathtaking to watch. Breathtaking. There is no alternative other than the fact that a rabid Trump supporter shot Democratic lawmakers because he's a rabid Trump supporter who murdered people for Jesus Christ and the leader of his cult, which is Donald Trump. His name is Vance Bolter. Go read about him on my Substack. Please, I encourage you. There is no other narrative other than that. So stay on that narrative and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And anytime someone tells you that it's not true, that he's a liberal, he's a Democrat, he's a progressive, no, hit them back with facts. I'm watching Gavin Newsom do this day after day after day. I've been emboldened by it to just continually fact check people and take those facts and shove them back into the arena of information because it actually works. So I encourage people to do that today.
So well said, Dean. And also, let me just say to that, there's not only just a normalization of violence, it's a kind of a wink-wink approval of you can do violence against my opponents. That's what Donald Trump and the Trump administration is saying to all their followers. It's okay if you go and, commit crimes against the opposition figures in this government, because
has he denounced the Minnesota lawmaker shooting?
I think he might have said. I think he might have put out a statement yesterday, but I don't think we're seeing. When you look at the insurrection, when you look
has
at
he called Tim Walz?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't
No,
know.
has
I
he
don't think
put
so.
out like a statement condemning political violence against all politicians in the United States of America?
I don't think he said that at all. I think what we're
No.
seeing is even we saw it with Padilla the other day, Senator Padilla with the Kristi Noem press conference, where there's just where he was sort of beaten up or taken out of the press conference for asking a question. We've seen it in Marjorie Taylor Greene events where people asking her tough questions get pulled
Yes.
aside by these people. I mean, these
Tased.
are tased. So this is the administration, the regime saying, hey, it's fine. We're not going to go after you because we've got Kash Patel and Bongino over at the FBI, got Pam Bondi. They're not going to do anything to you guys. We've seen it. I've pardoned a whole bunch of you already for doing all these kinds of crimes. And what you land up with is an escalation that we've been seeing building month after month after month, and now it's landed up in the deaths of these two people in Minnesota. It is
Yeah.
so obvious to me that the blood of those victims is on the hands of Donald Trump and this administration, because this
Mm.
is the environment they are creating, and all those other incidents you mentioned. They've been building this up for years and years, and it allows lunatics like Bolter to just get a gun, get some emergency response gear, and and do whatever he wants. And
Yeah.
it's another wink wink. Yeah, he looked, he's arrested today. He didn't look ashamed or anything. He just looked like he had committed some sort of great mission that he's on, and we'll see, but he probably won't get a stiff sentence. I don't think he won't go away for life. I may not. He should. He
Well,
should,
like
but
Donald Trump's talking about
yeah,
pardoning Derek Chauvin, the guy that
yeah,
murdered George Floyd. So,
yeah.
and he's pardoned worse people. I mean, he pardons pedophiles if they got billions. He'll pardon anybody. So, I go back to this all the time. What you're seeing and what you're hearing is real, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no alternative to this conversation other than Donald Trump is stoking terrorism, domestic terrorism. He is not just stoking it; he's endorsing it
Mm-hmm.
with his the complicity in his lack of full-throated response on behalf of politicians in the United States of America. Not that politicians are our favorite people, but they are human beings who don't deserve to get murdered in their fucking own home in cold blood, no matter who they are. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And Donald Trump is there's an old saying, if you permit it, you promote it. That's exactly what's going on here. This has been permitted for a very long time. He called the January 6th fucking lunatics very good people. Charlottesville, very good people. You're beautiful, he said to the people that stormed the Capitol when they
Political prisoners
fucking
is what
called them political prisoners, murderers. So
yeah.
the story continues to write itself, but it
Mm-hmm.
just gets more clear all the fucking time with every passing day. And what happened to Hoffman and Hortman this weekend in Minnesota in a 2-day manhunt to find this psycho who is a violent Christian nationalist. And what happened this weekend was sick, in terms of the lack of response from the only man who really has the ability to tell his people to stand down. But I mean, it's in keeping with the violence that he's been asking of his supporters for a long time. I mean, Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boy, who's like, hey, the Department of Proud Boys is standing by to go whoop protester ass in LA. We'll clean up those streets. You
Yeah.
just let us know. I mean, that was not condemned. The shooting was not condemned. Violence against people that don't like him isn't being condemned. As a matter of fact, it's being encouraged, not just encouraged, it's being planned for with these pardons of 1,600 violent offenders. It's being planned for by his own people stoking stochastic terror, by the embracement of QAnon conspiracy theories. I mean, you get fucking guys with shotguns showing up to pizza joints saying, "Hey, where are the babies that you're carving up for pizza toppings in the basement?" Like, and he said, "Yeah, I like QAnon. They like me too." Like these are it is exactly what you think it is. It
Yeah.
is a deranged man courting deranged people to do deranged things to make Americans absolutely fucking deathly afraid, specifically anybody who opposes him.
Mm-hmm.
That is fascism. That is authoritarianism. And that should be all you need to know today about why Mr. Belter decided to take matters into his own hands He did so because he felt like he was on a mission from God, and he felt like he was on a mission for Trump. And this is something that is going to happen in greater frequency. This is something I've been warning people about for years, as someone who was involved in the evangelical church as a kid, seeing the violence, the rhetoric, the pure propaganda of, trying to usher in, a God fearing country, and Jesus Christ should be the head of a country. Our God, our religion should be, in charge of governance in this country. Like, evangelical Christian nationalists believe that shit. They
Mhm.
truly believe that. They've taken an oath and given their lives on earth to an afterlife that will never exist, and they're willing to die for it. That's no different than ISIS. It's no different than the fucking Taliban. Christian nationalism is just white Taliban, if you ask me.
The whole notion of a Christian domestic terrorist, it sounds it's so weird, right? Those two words shouldn't fit together, but somehow in the Trump America, they do fit together. And we were talking earlier on about the G7 or the G6+1, how, America is appearing at odds with the values of the rest of the free world. Nothing could be more at odds with the values of the free world than allowing an environment where Christian nationalists are emboldened to take out the lives of opposition politicians. It's the most obvious sign of authoritarian creep, but it's also just the most obvious sign of a country out of step with its allies, out of step with the free world, that's just going in the wrong direction. The world is sending that signal to America, and America is certainly sending that signal back to the White House. That is the FiveStack today. And you can always check out all these stories at deanblundell.substack.com and at narrative.org. Always a great read, Dean. You do an amazing, amazing work over there, and keep going. It's great stuff.
Yeah, you too. Make sure you go and subscribe to our Substack. Listen, we're here for you. Really proud of you. Doesn't matter where you are. We're here to fight for democracy with you. We're here to kind of tell you the truth and usher you through the weeds of conversations and stories that you might not get on mainstream media. I think we do a pretty good job of that. If you want deep dives, narrative.org. No one puts dots together better than my man Zev Shalev. So if you're interested in the ins and outs of Bitcoin, the oligarchy, PayPal mafia, that is your man right there. So please go and subscribe. He's got 35% off all annual subscriptions for the month of June, as do I, Dean Blundell. Substack.com. You are a lifeblood to us. We are so grateful we get to do this with you on both sides of the border, having conversations and piping some information into the United States from Canada, bringing Canadians and Americans together. We see Americans, we love Americans. We know that Trump's values are not American values. That is why we are here. So if you support democracy, if you support independent media, we'd love to have you as subscribers, free or paid, 35% off both of our subscriptions, annual subscriptions. Become a member and get unlimited access. You can be part of these chats with us. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, PJ. Thanks, Oaths Matters. Thank you, everybody that spent some time with us today. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock with the FiveStack.